Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho, back with another video. Today I want to talk about this Fostex TH616. I think this is one of the best audiophile headphones you can get in 2024. Now this is a brand new headphone from Fostex, but it uses some of their technology that had existing. The thing that makes this stand out is that it has a biodynamic driver. Now biodynamic drivers are used a lot in actually speakers. They're used to play the bass a lot of times because those drivers are kind of known to kind of slap really hard. They move a lot of air. They give a lot of dynamics. Essentially, if you want to feel the bass, that's why they use the biodynamic drivers. Now this has that, and it also has a 50mm driver, making it, a bigger driver makes better bass as well. So they really are optimizing a lot for bass here. And I have to say the bass on this thing is pretty incredible, but not just the bass, but the rest of the tuning. The rest of the tuning is pretty awesome. It sounds like a studio headphone mixed with some treble. That's kind of a reminder of like a biodynamic headphone, which is why I have this here, so I can make that comparison later. The other thing about its driver is they actually rate it by what they call Teslas. So they have 1.5 Tesla, which is what they call the magnetic flux. But essentially what that means is the higher Tesla it has, the more kind of tighter, the more detailed the kind of driver is. So it moves faster, more tight because of that. Now, that's the thing I've noticed because they're more expensive headphones. They have basically two different lines. I actually recently reviewed their TH616, which uses a 1 Tesla driver, and that one went for like $900. While Fostex's flagship headphone, the TH900 or the 909, those ones actually go for $2,000, but they have a 1.5 Tesla driver. So this one actually shares the same driver as their flagship one at 1.5 Teslas. However, this headphone is actually a lot cheaper. It's actually only $1,300. Now, that's still a lot of money for a headphone, but compared to their flagship headphone, they actually made this cheaper by $700. They cut the price by a third, but they're using the same type of driver, same type of detail as that. I've actually reviewed those headphones before. I've actually heard them recently and did a whole comparison with other Fostex headphones if you guys are interested in that video, but I definitely have heard those, and I can definitely confirm that this driver plays on the same level as that. Not only do they decrease the price, right, but you're still getting basically the same stuff. You're getting the same headband, you're getting the same cup, and even the same kind of grill design. But the thing that I actually like is that they actually changed the cup on this. Now, this is more of a personal preference, but I actually like the natural wood look over their kind of TH909 brother. I just don't really like that shiny kind of lacquer look, I guess. So I feel like this actually looks better and it's cheaper. So really, I feel like that is the best move Fostex have done. Like, they literally made a great product and retune the drivers on this one, because the drivers do sound different. I think the tuning is much better on these new ones. There's much better vocals in general. And so this is a really compelling headphone in my opinion. So let's dive into details and kind of walk you through why I think this is arguably one of the best headphones you could buy in 2024. And I'm going to tell you some comparisons to some other kind of headphones I've heard in its price point, as well as other headphones that you might like. All right, so we have the Fostex TH808. Let's see what we got inside. So we got this nice long cable that comes with Fostex. I mean, long cables are good because it's much more expensive to get a long cable. This one does seem a little lighter, but all right, so let's talk about the Fostex build. So this thing is honestly really cool. Like I said, it has this nice wood finish. This is their kind of natural wood, and then you got this nice kind of metal grill. I feel like the wood and the metal grill kind of contrast each other really well. It's got kind of like a modern slash like, wood aesthetic, so it's kind of cool. Now this headband is the same headband they've been using since I think the dawn of time, essentially. So you have this kind of, steel headband, and then there's kind of this little bit of padding up here. I don't personally find it an issue. I find it pretty comfortable. And yeah, so this headphone actually isn't that heavy. So if I actually put it on the scale, you can kind of see how much it actually weighs. As you can see, it weighs about 400 grams. So this is a pretty lightweight headphone in that sense. And it's honestly, I didn't have much of an issue with the weight at all. So I think this is pretty nice. So it also has a metal yoke right here, which keeps this pretty sturdy. This actually has a lot of, pivoting and swivels. So you really can use this to adjust on your head really well. And I find it very comfortable. The other thing about this headphone as well is that actually has angled pads, right? So you can see the pads right here. And as I flip them around, they're actually kind of skinnier in the front, making it angled forward. This helps two things. So one thing it does is it actually makes it more comfortable. The second thing that it actually does is that it angles it forward, so it helps your imaging of your headphone. So your headphone's more like, I guess, speaker-like, because instead of your audio coming from the side, it comes more from like the forward angle. So that definitely helps with the directional audio. So I think that's a really, really nice kind of addition they have. But overall, for the build and aesthetic, I think it's a pretty nice headphone. All right, so let's now talk about sound. So when it comes to sound, I define this almost a studio sound with a little bit of a bright tilt, kind of like a Beyerdynamic headphone. I feel like that's the best way to kind of describe it. So right here, I have the Beyerdynamic Tiger 300R. I feel like the treble of the Beyerdynamic 300R is maybe even a little less trebly than the Fostex. I feel like the Fostex actually highlights the treble just slightly more than the Tiger 300R, not by much, but that's really kind of how I define how trebly it is. So if you're into like bright headphones, this might be it for you. But really, if we start down low, I feel like the bass is the most impressive part about this headphone. The bass sounds big and tall because it has those big drivers. It's also very dynamic, so you can really feel the bass when it hits. It's honestly a cool, really cool experience. Like the Tiger 300R doesn't really have much sub bass. The sub bass on the Fostex is actually amazing. It has this deep sub bass that you can really hear and you can really feel, versus I feel like the Beyerdynamic just sounds kind of anemic and there's not much depth to the sub bass, and the bass doesn't really kind of wrap around you. I feel like the Fostex really, the bass sounds really big and large because of those drivers, and it also sounds pretty far away because it has a pretty good soundstage as well. So overall, if you really like EDM, you really like your bass, the Fostex bass is probably the best dynamic bass I've heard in a long time, especially from an open back headphone. So really, I feel like that is the standout feature of this. And the bass of this headphone is actually definitely a little elevated. Now, I wouldn't say it's like, you know, bass head levels of like elevation, but there's definitely a slight bass boost and slight kind of sub bass boost with this headphone. So that's really nice to hear. It's not the flat, boring bass. Now, when it moves to the mid-range, I feel like that's where this Fostex starts to shine a lot. The mid-range is honestly very full, very forward. So when it comes to male vocalists, you hear them really well. When it comes to female vocals, they also sound very nice and full. However, once you move kind of past the mid-range, I feel like in the kind of upper mid-range to kind of the treble, that's where you kind of hear this starting to be a little bit more accentuated. So female vocals actually sound really nice. However, as you move a little bit higher, it gets a little bit bright. They get a little bit overemphasized, in my opinion. And that's where it starts to resemble, you know, a more bright headphone, like a Beyerdynamic headphone. And I feel like that might be the one area that could be slightly contentious for some people. Some people like it to be right there because it sounds very detailed. Some people might be kind of more fatigued because it's a little bit brighter up there. So it really depends on the person. And so really a studio bright headphone is really where it kind of falls to me when I'm listening to it. It's pretty accurate sounding headphone. I feel like the tonality of it is really nice. So when I was listening to music, honestly, it sounded very precise. So this is probably Fostex's best headphone, but beyond even that, I feel like at its price point, I could make comparisons to other, you know, I guess expensive headphones around this price point. So the first competitor I would think is kind of the Meze 109. It costs $1,000. It's also a wood headphone. And it's also open back. I actually like the Fostex better because one, I feel like the bass of the Fostex is better, but two, the mid-range of the Meze 109 is kind of step back. I'm not really a big fan of, you know, step back mid-range. And then the treble of the Meze 109 is more trebly and more annoying to me. I actually like the Fostex treble a lot better than the Meze 109. So for me, at that kind of $1,000 price point, I would definitely pick the Fostex over that. And then another dynamic headphone that I feel like a lot of people will be kind of price shopping around, it was definitely going to be the Focal Clear MG. I feel like that headphone is pretty popular amongst a lot of people. Honestly, I think the Focal Clear MG is a really nice looking headphone. I really do like the way that headphone looks. However, when it comes to sound, a lot of people say the Focal Clear has really nice bass. I would disagree. Honestly, I think the Fostex bass absolutely destroys that bass, because when it comes to the Focal Clear MG, it doesn't really have much sub bass in general, and the bass doesn't really sound that large. It sounds like a tiny driver trying to play bass, in my opinion. I think the Fostex has a lot more texture, a lot more kind of lower sub bass performance. and it overall sounds much tighter to me and nicer. So to me, that's one area, but even beyond that, the Full Count Clear MG also has this kind of metallic timbre is what people call it, but the treble just gets a little gritty and annoying to me over time as well, versus the Fostex doesn't really do that for me. So if I was to kind of be shopping around that price point, this is actually even cheaper than $1,500. It's only $1,300 in comparison. Obviously $1,300 is still a lot for a headphone, but if you're in that kind of price range, I would still pick the Fostex TH616 over that. So really, I do think the Fostex has a lot going for it. I think the tuning, especially the bass for sure, is definitely what makes it stand out. And I think it's a pretty well-tuned headphone for honestly its price, as well as the performance of the detail that this thing puts out is honestly really good. Like the 1.5 Tesla drivers really do have a really great detailed performance, but even beyond that, I would say the soundstage and imaging of this is honestly pretty good. So when it comes to imaging, basically directional accuracy, I played some games, kind of listened to their footsteps to see how it was. On the Fostex, it's honestly really good. If I had to rate it out of 8 out of 10, I would say it's pretty damn good. It's everything you would need to play competitive games. So really, it gets a win for imaging for sure. And when it comes to soundstage, you fall into like two different camps for soundstage. I say the soundstage of this is honestly really good. There are some people who think like if the vocals are kind of pushed back, it makes the soundstage sound bigger. I'm not really a person who follows that philosophy anymore. I feel like that's just not right. I would say some people might think this has a small soundstage because the vocals are very forward, but I'm telling you that the soundstage of this is actually really big, very tall. This is definitely a nice soundstaging headphone as well. Another thing I would like to mention is you can actually remove these ear pads by just twisting them. So they actually have this twist locking mechanism that you've seen in other headphones that got popular, but really you can see the little pins right here. Then they kind of slot into this hole and you kind of just twist it to get it out. So this just makes kind of changing pads really easy. I do like this kind of design, so this is really nice and just very convenient to change your pads. Another thing I want to talk about is kind of the efficiency of the drivers. This is one of the most easiest to drive type of headphones ever. You can plug this into like an iPhone dongle. It's really easy to drive. But beyond that, I actually tested this with different amplifiers. So essentially, if you do solid state, you'll kind of hear, the normal frequency. But if you put it on a tube amplifier, I feel like it does kind of enhance the experience. If you're really deep down the audiophile rabbit hole, I feel like the kind of tube amplifier really does warm up the treble a little bit, makes it a little bit more relaxed, and then the bass kind of gets more bloomy as well. So I think a lot of people who like a smoother type of sound will really like this headphone on tubes. I can definitely validate that on my iFi Pro iCan that I tested this with, as well as I tested this with the new Topping D93. So that was a pretty good combination to listen to the Fostex. So in the end, do I recommend a Fostex TH616? I definitely do. I feel like this tuning of the studio tuning with that type of great detail, vocal forwardness, that deep sub bass, that imaging, everything about this headphone is honestly amazing. Like the only thing, like I said, is maybe if the treble is a little bit too overemphasized. If you don't like bright headphones, you might not like this. But if you're really a fan of like brighter headphones like very dynamic headphones, then you're really gonna like this a lot. I think this headphone really is gonna surprise a lot of people. I think people should definitely check this out because this is honestly such a good tune product, something that came out of Fostex that I don't know if anyone really expected. And I think it's gonna win a lot of market share in my opinion. And honestly, very excited to share this video with you guys because I really do think this is a really good headphone. Anyways, I hope this video helped you guys. Please like and subscribe down below, helps my videos out. And I'll see you guys in my next videos. And if you guys are also interested in checking out my other Fostex videos I made, I definitely have that on the 616 and the other kind of line where I compared all the other headphones as well.